Hello guys, today I will explain about omnipotence, so let's start. The concept of omnipotence in philosophy and power scaling communities such as VS, Battles Wiki is generally divided into two fundamental aspects: the functional, procedural aspect and the transcendent ontological aspect, tier 0. Beginning with the functional aspect, omnipotence means that an entity is capable of bringing about any state of existence simply by willing it, without any possibility of failure. The term itself derives from the Latin words omnis, all, and potentia, power, literally meaning all-powerful. However, philosophy distinguishes between two forms of omnipotence, based on modal logic and possible worlds. The majority of philosophers and theologians, such as C.S. Lewis, argue for logical omnipotence, meaning that an omnipotent being can accomplish everything that is logically possible. Under this view, such a being cannot create a square circle or a married bachelor, not because of any limitation in power, but because these are merely pseudo-tasks, linguistic contradictions that do not describe genuine states of affairs. The alternative position, primarily associated with René Descartes and often referred to as universal possibilism, holds that God is the very creator of logical and mathematical truths themselves. Consequently, he can transcend logic and actualize absolute contradictions, such as creating a stone he cannot lift and then lifting it regardless. Within this line of thought emerges Aaron Z. Arosi's concept of logical space, in which God is understood as the totality of logical space itself, encompassing every possible proposition alongside its negation. Moving to the transcendent ontological aspect, supra-ontology, classified by the VS Battles Wiki as tier 0, the highest rank in its system. This level represents absolute transcendence, overall qualitative distinctions, multiplicities, and essences. In comparison, 1A transcends quantitative multiplicities and dimensional frameworks, while high 1A transcends multiple ontological layers. Tier 0, however, transcends the very framework of qualitative distinctions and essences themselves. There exists no common measure or shared standard between it and anything beneath it. It therefore becomes the absolute standard and universal measure of all existence, analogous to being or the one in classical philosophy, standing entirely beyond the framework of possible worlds and modal logic itself. To qualify as a genuine and absolute tier 0, the VS Battles Wiki establishes several strict and decisive requirements. Absolute primacy. Nothing can exist above it, nor can it be conditioned by anything else. Absolute unity. There cannot be two tier 0 beings, because their coexistence would necessarily introduce qualitative distinctions, contradicting the very concept. Absolute immutability and eternity. Immutability. Such a being does not become tier 0, undergo change, react, or make sequential decisions through time, since time and causality themselves originate from it eternally. Indivisibility. A tier 0 being cannot be divided into parts or possess half its power. It is absolutely without composition. These principles are reflected through attributes such as supraessential existence, beyond-dimensional existence, omnipresence, absolute acausality, creation from true nothingness together with the determination of possibility itself, and omniscience. The Tier 0 FAQ further explains that a battle between two Tier 0 entities is considered conceptually invalid and logically impossible, due to the absence of multiplicity. Likewise, transcending non-existence is regarded as genuine because non-existence, or pure nothingness, is itself a logical principle that falls beneath the authority and transcendence of Tier 0. Finally, the inability to actualize logical contradictions does not diminish a tier 0 being's status, unless the verse itself explicitly allows contradictions to be instantiated. Thus, within power scaling, omnipotence ultimately represents comprehensive ontological transcendence, reducing every dimension of imagination, philosophy, cosmology, and existence itself to absolute insignificance before its ultimate source.